Welcome to the deep dive. Today is October 13th, 2025. We're taking a necessary factual look this week at some really pivotal global developments. Our focus, it's squarely on the complex, critical movements toward, well, maybe peace in the Middle East. We're looking at the emergence of a multi-phase peace plan for Gaza.
That's right. Our mission is simple, really, to guide you through these latest diplomatic breakthroughs and the crucial hostage releases, the high-level summits, and maybe most importantly, to unpack the core political and military obstacles that still stand in the way of lasting peace. This comprehensive brief, it's drawn from the analysis provided by Stylo News. That's the AI-powered news platform developed by retired intelligence professionals, and it's supported by ProWave AI.
Okay, let's jump right into the diplomatic framework that seems to have been established this past week. We're tracking developments, 2 years after the Hamas attack on Israel that started this conflict back in October 2023. But this past week, it delivered a genuinely critical shift, didn't it?
It really did. That shift came on October 9th, 2025. Both Israel and Hamas, they formally agreed to the first phase of the U.S.-brokered peace plan. It's widely referred to as the 20-point Trump plan. And this is the first concrete agreement of this scale since the war began. But, it's important to note, it's really a transactional step at this point.
So what does phase one actually demand? What are the specifics?
Well, it demands three things concurrently. An immediate ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli military forces from the vast majority of Gaza, and a substantial exchange of prisoners. The agreement requires Hamas to release 48 Israeli hostages. Sources believe 20 of those hostages are currently alive. And in exchange, Israel releases 250 Palestinian prisoners.
Okay. And the timeline for this is moving quickly, right, as we speak?
Exactly. We knew the release of the remaining hostages was expected to begin around today, October 13th. That exchange, it followed a pretty strict 72-hour countdown, which began the moment the Israeli cabinet actually approved the deal. And that approval is now bearing fruit. As of today, October 13th, the initial humanitarian impact is, well, it's measurable. We can confirm this through multiple reputable global news sources, OANN, The Guardian, Invest.com. Hamas has indeed released the first group of 7 Israeli hostages.
7 released.
7. It confirms that the initial phase of the deal, despite all the political complexities, is actively being implemented on the ground now.
That initial step, it's a massive relief, of course, but it's only the beginning, isn't it? So let's pivot now to the high-level diplomatic stage, the efforts to solidify this fragile breakthrough.
Exactly. To seize the moment, leaders convened the Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit. That happened today, October 13th. It was co-chaired by U.S. President Donald Trump and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi.
And this wasn't just a small, quiet meeting, was it?
No, not at all. It was a truly massive signal of international interest. Over 20 world leaders attended. We're talking to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, key European figures from the UK, France, Italy. The attendance alone, it really highlights the global urgency to try and lock this agreement down.
It does seem like President Trump is positioning this as a major, perhaps legacy-defining push for the U.S. Is that primary goal, do you think, maybe overshadowing the practical security concerns, the ones that, say, Prime Minister Netanyahu might be focused on?
Well, that dynamic is probably the most telling aspect of the summit. You really see distinct agendas here. U.S. President Trump's role, clear that of the decisive mediator. He's strongly promoting the U.S. drafted plan and emphasizing massive post-conflict reconstruction funding, which crucially is contingent on this peace framework holding. Then you have Egyptian President al-Sisi. By co-hosting, he's definitely enhancing Egypt's diplomatic stature, positioning Egypt as the central peace broker in the region.
Right. And when you look at the primary combatants, Israel and Hamas, their perspectives really highlight the severe ongoing difficulties, don't they?
They couldn't be much more different. Take Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. His presence at the summit was uncertain, really, until the last minute, which reflects those deep internal political divisions in Israel and a lot of caution. His focus is clearly on future security and, critically, the future disarmament of Hamas. That's key for him.
And Hamas, what was their position on the summit?
They declined to attend altogether.
Declined entirely.
Yes. They opted to conduct the prisoner releases independently outside the summit structure. This physical absence, it kind of reinforces their primary position, which is resistance. Resistance to both disarmament and relinquishing political control over Gaza.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit then. We have leaders meeting, hostages being released, which is positive. But a comprehensive long-term solution, it still feels elusive. They have an agreement on paper for phase one, but what is the fundamental obstacle preventing, these 2 years of conflict from just restarting?
The obstacle is, well, it's foundational and structural. Hamas fundamentally rejects proposals for disarmament, and they reject relinquishing governance and control over Gaza. That's a non-starter for them. Their political leadership is essentially saying, look, this ceasefire is just a tactical break, a temporary military pause. It's not a permanent end to the conflict in their view.
And this brings us back to the details of the broader peace plan, the 20-point plan. The agreement seems to hinge on restructuring Gaza's governance somehow. What exactly is this proposed Board of Peace, and how is the international community planning to enforce the ceasefire if Hamas remains defiant on demilitarization?
Right, the Board of Peace. That's the central long-term proposal in the Trump plan. It envisions a new, non-Hamas governance structure, something that would oversee Gaza's reconstruction, its security. And crucially, it would be the body to access the international funding needed for that reconstruction. This is essentially the conditional incentive, the carrot, if you will, to move past Hamas rule. As for enforcement, a multinational monitoring force, or MMF, is planned for immediate deployment. Its job is to oversee ceasefire adherence on the ground.
A multinational monitoring force. Okay, who is contributing to this MMF?
We're looking at approximately 200 troops, initially at least, contributed by regional actors: Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the UAE. Their presence is meant to act as a kind of external guarantee of security. However, this is where the sources, the analyses, they diverge dramatically, while many international sources are hailing the agreement as a diplomatic breakthrough.
Understandably.
Yes, but others are deeply skeptical. Urim News Analysis, for instance, warns that because the plan doesn't fully neutralize Hamas, it might unintentionally guarantee Hamas's continued leadership, despite this Board of Peace proposal.
That conflict in analysis between sort of diplomatic optimism and pragmatic skepticism, that's critical, isn't it? To gauge the real-world anxiety around this, maybe let's look at the emotional temperature. Social media, specifically X, what is the public saying?
Well, the analysis there reveals very high polarization and deep distress. Negative sentiment absolutely dominates the discussions around the key conflict hashtags. Things like hashtag Middle East, hashtag Israel, hashtag Hamas, hashtag Gaza. It's running consistently between 70 and 75% negative.
70 to 75%.
Yes, and this reflects, widespread anger over the instability, the ongoing violence, and the devastating humanitarian crisis. Sources cite that over 67,000 people have tragically died in Gaza since the war began.
It's easy to discuss this in terms of, troop withdrawals and political calculus, but those numbers, 67,000 dead, that's the real staggering background to every single decision being made at Sharm el-Sheikh.
Absolutely. It's vital context.
Yeah.
And despite that prevailing negative sentiment across those specific conflict hashtags, we do find a powerful common viewpoint emerging elsewhere. The hashtag peace actually shows 50% positive sentiment.
50% positive for hashtag peace.
50%, which indicates, despite everything, a widespread global desire for a diplomatic resolution to actually succeed, even if, perhaps, trust in this particular process itself is low.
What's fascinating here is that clear desire for peace set against that backdrop of profound mistrust and negativity. So looking ahead now, what specific events should you be watching for in the immediate near future to gauge the success of this plan beyond just the first hostage release?
Okay, there are 4 key checkpoints, I think, that will determine the immediate viability of this deal. First, watch for the full implementation of the Israeli cabinet's approval for troop withdrawal from Gaza. That's expected to begin within 24 hours of the final deal being sort of solidified. Second, monitor the planned official visit by U.S. President Trump. He's scheduled to go to both Egypt and Israel, meant to formalize the agreement.
Okay, formalizing the deal.
Third, track the negotiating teams still in Egypt. They need to finalize technical details, address outstanding issues beyond just phase 1. And finally, number 4, track the actual deployment of that multinational monitoring force. If those troops hit the ground, if the MMF is deployed, that's a major sign of progress.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of this? Well, despite the immediate humanitarian success, and it is a success of releasing the first group of hostages, and despite the convening of over 20 global leaders in Egypt, the key to lasting peace, it seems, hinges on one critical, unresolved tension: Hamas's commitment, or lack thereof, to demilitarization versus the political viability of this proposed board of peace to actually govern Gaza.
And getting this type of comprehensive, unbiased analysis that balances the geopolitical context, the security concerns, with real-time public sentiment from sources like X that requires deep intelligence synthesis. This entire brief, it was created by Stylo News, the AI-powered platform we mentioned earlier.
That's right. Stylo News uses many traditional news sources alongside social media intelligence to create these detailed instant briefs. If you want this level of deep insight delivered instantly, you can subscribe to get your AI-powered news on demand.
Just visit www.stylonews.com. That's STYLO news.com. You can learn more there about our consumer or enterprise solutions.
That's www.stylonews.com. Thank you for getting us for this deep dive today.
Yes, thank you for listening. And until next time, we encourage you to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms for continuing updates on this and, of course, all major global events.